been a lot of conjecture too around the representative window in season, whether or not we need to make International Rugby League work, don't we, Gal? After what we saw Saturday night, whether it's in season, post-season, we need to see more of it.
I thought this weekend was outstanding. I really did. I can't wait for the World Cup. I think it's going to be one of the best World Cups we've seen in a long, long time, particularly with the amount of guys playing for Tonga and Samoa. The Kiwis are fantastic on the weekend. But it's disappointing for me this weekend won't be around the next 5 years. We're not going to have it, so I don't know where they're going to fit it in. But, yeah, I thought this weekend overall was absolutely brilliant.
How do you make it happen, Gus?
Scheduling.
I know, and we've spoken about it on this show.
Yeah, but
it's a nightmare.
You're seeing it happen before your eyes here. And I was writing about this 20 years ago. And I know we've gone through a lot of cultural awareness here at Channel 9 because we're starting to really learn more and more about these people and whether their backgrounds and their heritage and their place in the landscape of International Rugby League. But, you know, I came from the 60s and 70s and 80s, and you could count on one hand the number of Pacific Island people that were playing in our game. And even into the 90s when I was coaching, there was very few. But this has been an explosion over the last 20 years. And we first noticed it in junior rugby league registrations and the number of Pacific Island kids that were coming through. And people migrating from the Pacific Islands into New Zealand or coming from New Zealand to Australia at an early age to get the opportunity in the Australian Rugby League pathways system, you know, which is the best system in the world. And what is happening here at the moment, you know, apart from all the colour and the culture and the excitement and everything we see, it's an inspiration to future generations. And the league has to back this up with an investment in the Pacific Islands and the future of rugby league in New Zealand. There's a massive opportunity here, a massive opportunity for the growth of our game. Look at the passion and the support of this. Tonga is a nation, like over in the islands, there's only 100,000 people live on the island. It's not a big country, but look at this. Look how passionate, and look at the quality of their team and the players. And this is only the start. It's only the embryo start. This is not anywhere near the finish. This is why this is so important, because it's an inspiration for future generations. I won't be around in 20 or 30 years' time. You blokes will. But you remember my words that this is the making of a world game if we can get this right.
So, Gus, why were you so critical then about the scheduling of this weekend? A couple of weeks ago on this show, you were saying that it was horrible from the NRL to schedule this weekend, make players choose between New South Wales and Tonga. In the end, it was Daniel Tupou had to choose New South Wales. But for one player, the rest of the players then get that experience. And as a game, isn't it a positive for us to be sitting here today talking about that rather than having a weekend with no footy?
What are you suggesting that I said something wrong?
Well, I'm saying the scheduling of this mid-season test match.
No, I was not against this. I was not against the mid-season test matches. What I was against was Pacific Island players having to decide between their country of heritage or the opportunity to play Origin. That's what I'm saying. They should never clash. Those things should never clash. And we need to open up a much larger window for the development of International Rugby League, all right? At the moment, everything is beholden to club football and Origin, all right? We need to get international football on the same pedestal as Origin football, and club football needs to be a little bit in the background to that. We don't need 25 rounds of football to decide who's the best team in the NRL competition, right? What we need to do is expand the game globally and to give everyone a chance in the islands to play this game and to get the education and development that we players get here in Australia. When you go and talk to the islands, when you go over to the islands, they don't want their people leaving the islands just because they can't play sport and they're not being developed well enough. Their coaches aren't developed well enough. That's where the NRL has a responsibility to go in and work these areas and make it best for the future. It's not a criticism of we shouldn't have had that weekend. I never said that.
So what I
said was they should never have to make a decision choosing between Origin and their country. That's a ridiculous decision. We should never put them in that position.
So how does it work?
This, go back, Michael, you work at the Herald, go back and check all my columns for the last 20 years. I have been promoting this for 20 years, long before anyone else was. And I've seen the growth because I've been in clubland since that time. I played and coached in an area where there were very, very few Pacific Island players in our game. Very, very few. Now look at the demographic of our game. When Origin first started, our game was an Anglo-Saxon sport played in Sydney and Brisbane. Now it's anything but that. Look at the demographic of all the junior leagues. Look at all the schools programs that are run. And I can remember the growth of the Pacific Island people, their faith and their religion and what effect it was having, and it was something we had to come to terms with. And all the cultural awareness stuff that we're going through as broadcasters now to give all this their due respect. We've been doing in rugby league for the last 15, 20 years. Mind you, back when it first started, we were totally unprepared too. We didn't understand what we were dealing with. It's been an education process for us. and giving these people the identity and the respect and looking at the talent that they've got. Papua New Guinea, if Rugby League wants to do something extraordinary, they can save Papua New Guinea from themselves. Papua New Guinea is a land of 800 tribes and 800 different languages, all right? And it's rich in resources, but it's still third world in so many other aspects of its existence. Rugby League is the one thing that can unite that country. The one thing, and I remember dealing with the government many years ago and talking about the education system, getting their kids into schools. The only way they can get their kids to schools, make Rugby League a subject. That's how vital it is for them up there. So there is plenty that Rugby League can do for the growth of the global game, plus for the well-being and the future of a lot of these kids that are living in Pacific Island nations.